Greetings all. This is our last video, probably, in the Blossoming of Awareness series. We might get to the end of the text, or we might need to do one more video. We'll see what happens here. So on yoga philosophy tour, one never knows where one is going to end up, and I've rather unexpectedly become ensconced in a small child's room, decorated apparently so as to invoke the demigod known as the Flash, hence the particular color of the walls and arcane symbols on the walls that you can't see. So, yes, I'm out on the road and heading back home soon. And now we'll explore these last few verses of the Blossoming of Innate Awareness, the Svabodha-mañjarī of Vīranātha. And here at the end, Vīranātha gets a bit playful, one might say, and gives us a few more sensual practices that can lead us to realization or recognition of our innate awareness. Okay, so first, in verse 40, he actually gives a practice that's parallel to an earlier practice he gave, and it would seem to be a bit out of place here, but there you go. So verse 40 reads, Duraruchatare shabde shabdarthanavadharanat savadhanasya tadjnanam Kshinabodha prajayate. So this verse means when a word is uttered from a distance, one cannot discern its meaning, but one who is attentive cognizes it, and awareness melts. Right in the chat window for those of you watching live. Those of you watching on YouTube can navigate to the blog page to see these verses written out for you, as mentioned in the more info section. So we actually have a couple of possible readings for this verse. The first part's secure. We have, when a word is uttered from a distance, one cannot discern its meaning. So you're kind of straining to discern what's being said. And this, again, is similar to this earlier verse, remember, where you're looking through the fog, and is that a pillar or a person over there? And you're kind of straining, and then you realize which one it is. Oh, and there's this spontaneous relaxation of awareness, and also a kind of joy in having discerned what it is. So here it's the same thing, except we're talking about sound. So you're kind of straining to hear what's that word, but you pay attention and you focus in, and then you're able to cognize it. You're able to understand it, and awareness melts. Well, doesn't say melt away, just awareness just melts. Like, so there's this, which if I could express it in body language, this, yeah, okay, that's what it is, yeah. I'm exaggerating it a little bit. But we actually have two alternate readings for this last pada, this last quarter of the verse. Kshinabodha prajayate, awareness, awareness melting occurs or arises or happens, or kshina rodha prajayate, the blockage melts, the melting of the blockage occurs or arises or happens. So I think it sort of boils down to the same thing, and that's possibly why we got this confusion. We have about 3 manuscripts reading one and about 3 manuscripts reading the other. So what do you guys think the original author wrote here? Did he write Bodha or Rodha. And again, I'll give you the options. So the one I've put there, which I accidentally wrote awareness melts away. It's just awareness melts. Kshina bodha prajayate. The melting of awareness occurs. So again, the context is you're straining to hear that word that's being said, and you really focus in, and then you recognize it. Is it that awareness melts, meaning the kind of focused awareness perhaps? Or is it rodha, the blockage melts? So you feel a blockage to understanding, and then the blockage melts or dissolves or falls away. So it's one or the other, and it seems to point towards the same experience, So literally the blockage melting occurs or awareness melting occurs. It's no possibility of a double entendre here. It's rather that we just have two different manuscript readings, and the original author, Vīranātha, certainly wrote one or the other. He wrote Bodha or he wrote Rodha, and the one scribe or another messed it up. But as is often the case, we don't know who messed it up. Right now, I'm kind of favoring Rodha as well, as a couple of people are starting to say. So let's revise that verse here. Okay, so now we have one who is attentive, cognizes it, and the blockage melts away, that sort of block or impediment, mental impediment in understanding, and you experience this openness. So either way, though, it's pointing to the same thing, which is that, remember, he's always interested in showing us something about our true nature. So what he's trying to say here, as in the previous verse that had to do with the visual phenomena, he's trying to say, there you are straining to try to get something, and then you get it, or believe you've gotten it, which in this case doesn't really matter either way, but you're straining to get something, and then, he says that moment of, that is a pointer towards our true nature. In that moment, we relax back into that which we are. We simply become relaxed awareness, even if just for a moment, So, yeah, it's as simple as that. He says, take note of that moment when it happens in everyday life. Pay attention to that kind of a moment. And notice what it shows you about what you are, about your true nature, that then when the striving comes to an end, there's this relaxed presence. There's this simple enjoyment of being, even if it's just for a few seconds. Okay, so let's get to the next verses, the sensual practices that he ends with. It may or may not be significant that he chooses to end with these sensual practices, a few practices that will be perhaps delightful to those who are into Neo-Tantra, I don't know, but in verse 41, we're missing a half verse, actually. So half of the verse just went missing along the way. And we only have this half, but it's interesting. Yes, by the way, thank you guys for your comments. I'm definitely agreeing with you. As Rowan says, it's not that awareness is straining, it's that attention, one's attentiveness, one's manas. So manas is the faculty of attention, which is a function within awareness, So it strains and then releases, and one drops into awareness. So yeah, it just leaves the problem in that verse of what exactly is this blockage, this rodha. It's not quite clear. We need a commentary. We don't have a commentary on this verse, meaning a Sanskrit commentary. So to some extent, we have to speculate. Okay, so next verse or half verse. Padabhyanga parishwangat chittarodakshanam bhavet. Again, we just have half a verse, which means by anointing and massaging of the feet, the blockages of the mind are dissolved. So abhyanga, if you know the word abhyanga, Ayurvedic massage, anointing and massaging with oil. And parishyanga means sort of embracing, means sort of amorously rubbing. So here we are advised to do two things, abhyanga and parishwanga. So kind of therapeutic massage of the feet, but also parishwanga, also sensual or even amorous massage of the feet. So perhaps, there is a kind of therapeutic element to it, a reflexology sort of thing, but also a very sensual element. Parishwanga often means a loving embrace. So this abhyanga and embrace of the feet, due to this practice, due to this particular practice, the blockage of the mind, and here we get the word rodha again, by the way, the blockage of the mind will suddenly dissolve, or the blockages of the mind will suddenly dissolve. Okay, so this also raises a question about the reading of the previous verse, because it could be that the scribe, looking ahead, accidentally wrote rodha when it really was bodha in the previous verse. Who knows? We just don't have enough manuscripts to be sure about that. But anyway, here we definitely have rodha, that the mind gets sort of stuck, gets sort of blocked, the heart mind, chitta being the locus of both thoughts and emotions once again. So the heart mind's blockages suddenly dissolve, okay? Due to this practice of anointing, massaging, and embracing the feet. So certainly then people have been doing this both therapeutically and romantically for hundreds of years, if not, of course, millennia. But here it's actually enshrined as a tantric practice. Remember, a practice is tantric if it's found in a tantric source. In Sanskrit, that's the tradition's own understanding. So Brian asks, can the word used for awareness in that case, you're going back to the previous verse again, right? Can the word used for awareness in that case refer to a particular instance of focused attention rather than intrinsic awareness? Yes, that's what I was speculating. Even though it's bodha in that previous verse, or might be bodha, again, we don't know. It could be a particular usage of bodha. But in a sense, it doesn't matter too much. We shouldn't debate too long about that, because his intention is pretty clear either way in terms of what phenomenological experience he's talking about. Okay, so verse 41 then was the foot rub verse, and now we come to verse 42, which is the meditate on chocolate verse. Not literally chocolate, because they didn't have chocolate yet in India, but a sweet that dissolves slowly. So, these days at the yoga retreats, they're into cacao ceremonies, right? And so maybe that's something similar, although cacao is not sweet, and he does specify sweet. So before we do the sweet verse, Tom says, when I hear feet, inner feet, I think of the inner guru. For me, this means by honoring our own inner guru, the blockages of the mind are dissolved. I'm just thinking about whether this is possible here. I think he does mean literal foot massage, whether it's massaging and embracing your own feet, whether it's massaging and embracing somebody else's feet, because this verse comes in a series of several verses that are clearly about sensual practices, sensual dharanas. But yeah, you could read it in terms of some inner meaning, but I would be skeptical if that's his specific intention. Okay, verse 42. Ruchyanam shardavadinam swalolagre stitim kuru kshiyamane rasanande kaivalyam upajayate. Okay, so this means keep an appetizing morsel on a ruchya, such as a sweet, a shardava, on the tip of your tongue, or on the top of your tongue, perhaps. When the bliss of its savor, of its rasa, when the bliss of its juiciness dies away, fades away, then kaivalya arises. So here we see very clearly he must be using kaivalya in a different sense from Patanjali. He's not using kaivalya to mean suddenly you become isolated from the world and from all material phenomena. No, kaivalya must therefore here mean a sense of peace and freedom, as it also can mean, right? So it's again another instantiation of the same pattern we've seen before, such as focus on the sound of the gong that then fades away, focus on the sound of the thunder that then fades away, focus on the orgasmic feeling that then fades away, focus on whatever fades away. Here we have a sweet, okay? So he says an appetizing food, an enjoyable food, ruchya, specifically a sweet, a shardava, something that has the sixth taste. In Ayurveda, there's 6 tastes, like bitter, sour, pungent, astringent, salty, and sweet. And so the 6th taste here being the sweet taste. So for us, chocolate certainly works, as long as it's not that super bitter dark chocolate. That will not work for this practice, people. It needs to be somewhat sweet, at least. It has to activate the sweet taste buds on the tongue where you go, like that. So it could be chocolate, it could be any sweet that you love, right? Because what you want to do is meditate on it, and here's the key: don't chew that chocolate, don't chew up that sweet. You got to just let it dissolve slowly. You got to be patient. You got to prove your yogic prowess. Prove how yogic you really are by not chewing it. You're just going to stay there present with it and enjoy it and resist that temptation to go, nom, 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 nom. You're just going to let it dissolve, let it dissolve. And you notice it actually takes a long time to go to zero taste, to go to no flavor at all. So if it's even a small piece of chocolate, you let it dissolve, but there's still a chocolatey flavor, and it gets subtler and subtler and subtler until it's this subtle chocolate-flavored consciousness, as I talk about in recognition sutras. Some of you love that. And then you follow that, you stay with that subtle chocolate flavor or whatever it is until it is totally gone. But you're not trying too hard to focus on it, right? You're just staying with it until it's totally gone, and then you just be. You let the chocolate flavored consciousness lead you to pure consciousness, and you just let yourself be in that pure consciousness that is gently vibrating in the aftermath of that sweet manifestation of consciousness. Okay? So that's the practice. And then you experience this kaivalya, this freedom and peace and needing nothing. You fully experience the chocolate, so you need nothing else. Okay. Great. So Gerald says, it appears many of these practices focus on the transitional edges of experiences, as if one is to be transported by them and thus carry across one's awareness to a more spacious place. Exactly. That's the theme. There's many other practices too, but that's the kind of leitmotif of the work. Okay. So one more verse here. Oh, and by the way, we should compare Vijnana Bhairava Tantra verse 73, which is also about enjoying delicious food and letting it satiate you. It's a slightly different practice, but I will post that verse, that parallel verse, in the comments afterwards, so that we don't take up time reading it now. Okay, verse 43. This is the last practice of the text. Malatyadishu gandhanscha tathaiva paribhavayet tadashraya vashat chittam teshu lineshu liyate. In the same way, one should meditate, or one might meditate, on the fragrance of flowers such as jasmine, malati. Then, due to the mind having them as its support, it dissolves when that scent dissolves. So, as you might know, if you've ever, like me, smelled a flower until there's no more smell left, if you keep smelling a flower, you'll actually inhale all the little smell particles in the flower, and it will not have its scent so much anymore, or barely noticeable. So here he says, paribhavayet, one should meditate on gandha, the scent of flowers such as jasmine, malati, jasmine. And if the mind becomes totally absorbed in that sensual experience, if the mind has that as its foundation, then due to that fact of being absorbed in the smell, when the smell of the flower dissolves, the mind dissolves with it. And again, same thing as the previous verse, same thing as many other verses in the text. We just land in the spacious openness. We're just like, now you're in jasmine flower flavored consciousness. And then even that very subtly subsides into just presence, into just being, right? So you need to sit with this flower for 5 minutes. Most of these meditations are micro meditations. They do take 5 minutes. It's not just about smelling a flower and calling it a tantric practice, right? It's take a moment, right? I think that phrase that's popular these days is very much a tantric sutra. Take a moment with it, have your moment. So that means Yeah, not just, oh, that's good. Okay, what's next? No, but like really going into it. And so I would say about 5 minutes are what we're talking about here. For the chocolate, possibly a little longer. For the gong, any of these can be 5-minute micro meditations, but I would say not less than 5 minutes to really get the effect, I think, and possibly more like 8 or 10. So there's a nice little coincidence here, because for myself and for some others on the call right now, like Chip and Tom, my first guru Mai, her pre-sannyas name was indeed Malati, Jasmine. You pronounce it in Hindi Malti, but it's really Sanskrit Malati, which means jasmine. And so that was the pre-sannyas name of my first teacher. So that's kind of cool. That's in the last verse, if we want to call that a coincidence. Now we come to, there's one or two concluding verses. And so let's just do at least the important one, because there is a teaching here. We're done with the practices, but we have a concluding verse. Itam pratikshanam yasya chittam atmani liyate salabdha bodha sadbhavo jivan mukto bidhiyate. In this way, one who dissolves the heart-mind, the chitta, into the self in every possible moment attains the essence or the real state of awareness, the sadbhava of bodha, or the essence of awakeness, you could translate. And such a one is called liberated while living, jivan mukti, or a jivan mukta, sorry. The actual person who has jivan mukti is a jivan mukta, right? So again, let's read this verse. Very important summary verse, really kind of driving home what Vīranātha's project is in this beautiful text. He says, in this way, one who dissolves the heart-mind, the chitta, into the self, into the Atman, in every possible moment, pratikshanam, in every possible moment, attains the bodha sadbhava, the essence of awareness, or the essence of awakeness, because bodha means both equally, or the real state of enlightenment, if you really want to translate bodha as enlightenment, right? It is the word that gets, I would say, mistranslated as enlightenment. There is no other word. So this is quite a profound promise. One will attain the sadbhava, the essence, the real nature of bodha, awakeness, awareness, simply through this practice of learning how to dissolve the chitta into the Atman, learning how to dissolve the thinking, feeling mind into the pure presence that you are. He says, this is the only practice you can do. You can attain jivan mukti simply through this practice. And he's not, of course, saying only. He's not saying don't do all those other practices. He's just saying if you were able to fully actualize this practice, it will result in jivan mukti, a state of liberation while living, while the body is still alive, not what people usually aspire to, liberation at the moment of death or after death, right? So this is a very, very beautiful invitation. Yes. you guys are getting it, just as, Gerald said earlier, just as Kyrillia is saying now, resonance is established, absorption and resonance is established in the savoring phase, which prepares us or induces us to then resonate with the dissolution into pure presence, into simple being, right? Where you're just enjoying the very fact of your own being. It's so simple. Yes, the truth is that which cannot be simpler. So explore this text more. Now you have the whole text. You'll get the study guide. We'll have the study guide, have the whole text, and explore these opportunities to dissolve the, thinking, worrying, narrating mind into the presence that you are through following those sensual experiences that dissolve and taking these other opportunities like, oh, what was that thing I was trying to remember? Oh, I got it. And a moment of dissolution. And then just take that moment, sit with that moment for 3 minutes. Take these micro meditation opportunities in everyday life, give each other foot rubs, right? And of course, the practice wouldn't be the practice unless you take some time right after the foot rub to just be in the state that offers you, right? The just being part is the part he's really interested in. And then he's interested in all these techniques as a way of accessing that just being condition. Okay, so Gerald asks, is there a visual dissolution variant? Absolutely, he just doesn't give an example. We might prefer that he did, but he does say earlier that there can be a visual image that dissolves. This is actually easier for us than for him. With modern technology, you could create a video of something like a bindu of light or something and focus on it and have it slowly fade out. So yes, he does mention visual things that dissolve. Can you guys think of examples? I'd love to hear your examples of maybe something that doesn't need technology, although that's good too. Some visual image that slowly fades away in kind of the right time frame to do a practice with. Please offer your suggestions in the comments. Yes, as Chip says, the wave of enjoyment dissolves into the enjoyer, and then there's just that being, enjoyment of being. John asks when season 2 starts. At the end of this week. Oh yeah, we're going to keep going. Yeah, it would be nice to chant the entire text with tambura. Right? That's what's going to make it sound much better so that you can chant along with it. Oh yeah, so you guys are giving the example of the light dissolving at sunset. Yeah, that's not going to be a 5-minute meditation, but it is a good example. So that's more of a half-hour meditation, right? Where the sun sets and you just focus on the place where the sun set as the light dissolves and let it take you into stillness, into silence. I think that's a great example. Yeah. And I'd still like to find a micro meditation example that's, sort of in the 5 to 8 minute time frame. A lot of people said sunset. Like 30 of you are like, sunset! Dissolving clouds, yeah. That's another good idea. Perhaps, yeah. Ice dissolving into water, Brian offers. Yeah. Okay, so that's it for our text. There's only one more verse where he signs off. He gives his signature in the final verse, so there's no teaching there at all. I don't even have it. Yes, I do. I have it. I have it in Sanskrit. Oh yeah, you guys are still throwing out ideas. You can keep doing that even when the video is done. Ripple on the water, I think, is a good one. Ripple on the water that then becomes completely still. That is definitely a micro meditation of the kind that that Vīranātha is talking about. Absolutely. Thank you for that one. Okay, so the final verse is Mīmamsa vanasimhasya harshadatasya sununa krta vamanadattena Svabodha-mañjarī. So this Svabodha-mañjarī, this, giving the full title, this bouquet of methods for manifesting one's innate awareness, one's innate awakeness, has been written, has been formed by Vamanadatta, which is another name for Vīranātha. Has been composed by Vamanadatta, who is the son of Harshadatta, who is a lion in the forest of Mimamsa. So he's being humble here because he gives the praise not to himself but to his father. He says, "Oh, I'm the son of Harshadatta, who is a famous author on Mimamsa, on Vedic ritual." So he's a lion in the forest of Mimamsa means he's a badass author of texts about Vedic ritual. And then he doesn't promote himself at all, but he's signing off, I'm so-and-so, son of so-and-so. That's the author's signature. So you commonly get that. So that's the end of our text, and we will begin next week. Yeah, it is end credits. We'll begin next week, or at the end of this week, actually, with a very close, very thorough, verse by verse, word by word analysis of the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. And I know a bunch of you voted for Spandakarika, and we'll do that as well at some point. But we want to really see if we can nail down what some of these esoteric VBT practices are really saying, and give a step-by-step for everyone. Like, here's the practice, here's what you do step by step, if there is more than one step, and often there is. Okay. Thank you, guys. I'm about to be late for my workshop here. So great to be with you. Please do review the text, take notes, and perhaps take some images. Perhaps you want to share some images in the group that relate to the practices in the text. That would be awesome. We could maybe even make an image collage of these practices. Wouldn't that be awesome? An image collage of all these different practices to inspire us to engage these wonderful practices in Vīranātha's text. So at some point we'll do more Krama texts as well. Vīranātha is the third guru of the Krama. 3 generations later, we get Abhinavagupta and Kshemaraja 4 generations later. So that's the lineage that of the Krama, in case you didn't know. So thanks for all your kind comments, and we'll see you soon. Om.